Merseyrail bans posters advertising the latest Morrissey album because one member of the public complains that he doesn't like the singer's politics. This is quickly followed by the country's oldest record shop banning his albums from sale. In this video, some reflections on this as the possible tip of the iceberg when it comes to free speech in the UK. My name is Mallen Baker. This is the Mallen Baker Show for Changemakers. We are certainly living in polarised times. Brexit has dealt the death blow to another British Prime Minister. The recent Euro election revealed the full extent of the painful division of the country, with people on the left deciding that assaulting opponents with milkshakes should now be normalised as a standard part of political discourse, and everybody very much holed up in their respective bunkers, firing potshots at each other. But it's a little astonishing to step back and reflect on just how far we've slipped. The latest sign of this was the banning by the company Merseyrail of adverts for Morrissey's new album on their stations. They apologised for any offence the posters may have caused and said they were taking them down because they were not in line with the company's values. Now, I promote to companies that they should do business according to a set of values all the time. But what exactly was the cause of offence in this case? A poster advertising an album by a well-known and highly regarded artist. There's nothing on the poster to cause offence. I've listened to the album, which is actually quite good, so thanks Merseyrail, probably wouldn't have discovered it otherwise. But in any case, there's nothing on the album to cause offence. The complainant has said that the poster didn't offend them personally, but they had asked Merseyrail if the company agreed with Morrissey's opinions. I mean, what? Actually, what? Morrissey, in common with a lot of other people in the field of the performing arts, has strong opinions on a bunch of topics. Best known is his rock-solid commitment to animal rights. Not a secret, he once did an album called Meat is Murder, the clue's in the name. But in this age of rampant veganism, that's probably not the opinion they had in mind. It probably is the opinion that led him into trouble because it's his devotion to the animal cause that led him to support the For Britain party, which span out of UKIP. He's been pictured wearing a For Britain pin a couple of times. For Britain has the strongest animal rights positions of any of the parties, which is why he said that he supports it. Now, there's no doubt that For Britain is a controversial party, but controversy is something that gets defined by your critics. It is a legal party, hasn't done anything to break the law in that way. It denies being a far-right party, even though that's how it gets labelled. And I see all sorts of people getting labelled as far-right these days, some of them quite ridiculous to give that association. So the mere fact of people using that label shouldn't be enough to damn them. It denies being a racist party, even though it's concerned about Muslim extremism. In other words, the personal political belief of an artist in support of a legal political party is now a matter that a company's going to have an opinion about. I must admit that when I've argued that companies should have values and operate according to those values, shutting down people whose opinions you disagree with wasn't really what I had in mind. If the poster was promoting violence or hate, or the album did likewise, then of course no company would carry it. But just because one person amongst your customers doesn't like somebody's politics? I mean, seriously? Since Merseyrail said that this was to do with incompatibility with their values, I went to their website and had a look at what their stated values actually are. In common with a number of companies that don't really know what they're doing in this space, mostly their stated values are not values at all. They want their people to be genuine, which they define as showing commitment to their role in Merseyrail, which is a bit weird. And professional, well, yeah, that's a requirement for the job. It's not really a value. But it's the last one where we get some sense of where it's all coming from. Inclusive. And then there's a bit about networks, but then there is a genuine value statement at the end. Open to different approaches, backgrounds, values, beliefs, and organisations. Always understands how difference contributes to the success of a business. Okay. Open to different beliefs. Right. Unless your name is Morrissey? I mean, I'm struggling to see how banning that poster is an expression of that set of values. You would say the opposite. But it's probably because when they say that they value difference, they're talking about a very specific range of differences. I think what it comes down to is that because some people will say that through guilt by association, Morrissey can be whispered about being racist, because parties like For Britain, even if they deny it, are held by some to be self-evidently racist. And if Morrissey associates with them, then even though he denies it, he must self-evidently be racist as well. Well, look, various people, including party insiders, currently allege that Jeremy Corbyn's Labour Party is deeply anti-Semitic. Of course, it denies such accusations. Does that mean that companies should be refusing to carry posters for recording artists who support the Labour Party? That would be quite a few people. And if you're saying that's not an equivalent comparison, you're going to have to explain the difference. Lots of people allege racism, tick. They can point to circumstantial evidence at best, tick. The party concerned denies it, tick. The only difference is how the person making the decision evaluates the validity of the claims of both sides. Now, I do get why companies find themselves in a dilemma on some of this. They are so desperately scared right now on the diversity agenda, where they're being told that having a gender pay gap is a sign of sexism, although, as I described in a separate video, it probably actually means they offer flexible working to employees who want to benefit from it. And those companies are also being told that they're probably institutionally racist and maybe transphobic and all the rest of it. So companies are hypersensitive to anything that whiffs like treading into any of these topics. But one thing that companies used to understand well in the past was that they should support the institutions of good governance. And part of good governance in any country is a robust support for free speech. Not necessarily internally to the business. It's not a blank check for disgruntled employees to slag their bosses off in public, but within the public sphere. Now, right now, we've seen Twitter becoming increasingly judgmental about which opinions they permit on their platform and which they don't. For instance, For Britain, them again, have had its Twitter account deactivated. There was no suggestion that the party had broken any of Twitter's rules, so what was the basis for such action? Well, it doesn't have to explain, and it hasn't. It has similarly booted off a number of people concerned about issues around the transsexual agenda, including at least one highly experienced medical practitioner who specialises in trans cases, although that person was reinstated eventually. Then you've seen the controversial UKIP candidate Carl Benjamin, otherwise known as Sargon of Akkad, have his funding accounts dismantled by both Patreon and latterly by YouTube, which still hosts his video but doesn't allow any of them to be monetised. Now, you may personally hate all of those people for what they say and what they believe. And just because I mention them here doesn't mean I personally support anything specifically they may have done and said. But the point of free speech is that it kicks in when people have opinions you don't like, not when it simply deals with those that you do. Deplatforming and shutting people down seems to be becoming the way that we deal with political disagreement at the moment. And if you're sort of in the political centre, as I am, you can't help but notice that at the moment it seems to be the people on the left who are doing the assaulting and the shutting down. Now, I remember when it was the left that was championing freedom of speech. Those days seem to be pretty distant in the past right now. Right now, there are a lot of people who take the view that if you champion free speech, that probably makes you at best right-wing and probably so-called alt-right or far-right. Now, that can only be the case if the sensible centre ground decides to hide away from supporting the principle. So when people complain about the views of that speaker whose event you're hosting, or that employee who made the mistake of telling a non-PC joke, or that artist who made an ill-advised tweet 10 years ago, or that album poster for a singer whose politics someone doesn't like, it's become the done thing to rapidly pull support from the luckless individual concerned and hang them out to dry. Now, companies that do that in the name of diversity, please be clear that this is not helping diversity at all. Diversity should include diversity of world outlook, including diversity of political opinion. Diversity of people of all shapes, sizes, colours and abilities, so long as they think exactly as we think, is not diversity. And secondly, think about how much harder it becomes for us to solve our common problems. In the absence of robust debate, in the absence of full scrutiny, bad ideas that happen to fit the orthodoxy hang around like a bad smell. Potentially useful challenges to bad ideas are discouraged because of their career-limiting potential. Agree? Disagree? Well, For now, you can let me know in the comments. Better do it quick before those opinions of yours fall the wrong side of the permitted speech policy of companies and governments.